Welcome, Pete. This is Pete Haynes from the Lurkers, who's a songwriter and the drummer in the band. Thanks for coming along to chat to us today, Pete.
That's appropriate. Thanks for asking me.
So, first things first, you started drumming at quite a young age, didn't you?
Well, not as young as some. Some people they've got a drum kit when they're 4. But I did want to be a drummer at a young age, and I got a little tin drum from a jumble sale
Mm.
for 3D when I was about 7 or 8. 3D was 1 pence. And with my mate Raymond Brown, he got a Beatles guitar for 2 and 6, about 12 pence. And we formed a group called the Dave Clark Two. And that was the imagination, and my imagination hasn't really extended since then.
Well, didn't you get to know members of the band The Who when you were quite young?
Well, yeah, I mean, the roadies used to live around the corner from us, in Ickenham, which is outer West London, and Keith Moon's roadie Roger Searle. His mum knew my mum. My mum worked in Budgeons up the road, and my brother Dave, who unfortunately died a few years back, he was a music fanatic. He was 2 years older than me, and he was very ill. But he always used to ask Roger, what's the group doing and everything. At the time, he would have been about 12, I suppose, and I
Mm.
would have been about 9 or 10 or something. And Roger came in and sort of said to my mum, "Well, we'd like to take Dave to see, the Who, because they were rehearsing in Shepherd's Bush, which wasn't a million miles away." And my mum was a bit worried about it, but Dave went up, and Roger and his friend Tony, who was the other roadie, it was nice for them, these sort of big blokes. I thought they were very old. They were most probably only about 21, 22, if
Mm.
that, with long hair and beards. They come and picked Dave up in the van, and they took him to Shepherd's Bush to see the Who rehearse. And I remember him saying, "Oh, Pete Townsend bought me a can of Pepsi." It was fantastic, and yeah, really nice of them. And he walked up to Keith Moon and he said, "My brother." He said to Keith Moon, "Oh, my brother wants to play the drums. He hasn't got a drum kit. He loves drumming to 'I'm a Boy' and pictures of Lily on the chair at home." So
Mm.
Keith Moon gave my brother this bunch of sticks and said, "We'll give him them." And so he go, "But I broke them all." And it's just that's the way it is. And but then many years later, I met Keith Moon in 1977. I was in the pub in West Kensington by West Kent Station, the Nashville, and Keith Moon come up to me and he had a joke with me, and I didn't know it was Keith Moon, but it was pointed out to him by a guy that used to go in one of our local pubs, who was also he was a bit of a bodyguard of his. And anyway, I said, "Can I have a word with you?" Because I'm not a very starstruck person. I don't really. I was more interested about him giving me the drumsticks and my brother who had been ill.
Mm.
And I said to him, I told him the story. And he said, "Oh, I remember Roger brought him along." And that guy, I looked at him and I thought, what a nice man. And
Mm.
I said to him, "Of all the people you meet, what you do, and that sort of drunken, drugged up sort of circus you're involved in, you remember my brother coming up?" And he said, "Yeah, yeah." And I said, "And you gave those drumsticks?" And he went, "Yeah." He goes, "Have you got any left? Can I have them back?" And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, blah." He said, "Well, I'm going to buy you a drink." So I said, "Well, it's very good." So I said, "I'll have a light and bitter, please, Keith." And he turned to me, he goes, "You sure that's what you want, a light and bitter?" And I said, "Yeah, thanks." He seemed like an older brother to me.
Mm.
And I really took to him, like a really nice man. And he said, "Okay, are you sure, Pete?" Like I was a young boy or something. I
Mm.
said, "Yeah, I'll have a light and bitter." So he turned at the bar and said, "Light and bitter for my friend, and I'll have a quadruple brandy, please." And that was the difference between us.
So, how did the band come together, the Lurkers?
Well, we weren't musicians. Let's get that straight. And anyone who heard us, and I thought, "Fuck's sake." Um, we it was more of an emotional bonding from
Mm.
outsiders, and that's why we were called the Lurkers. Pete, the guitarist, wanted to call it the Chains, but a guy in the pub called Paul, who was a coalman, he said, "You boys can't call yourself the Chains. You don't got no girlfriends. You don't go anywhere. You're the lurkers. Because we were always in the corner of the pub. I mean, we were like, from the age of 18, 17, 18, 19, 20, sort of crap jobs, no jobs, sitting in the pub,
Mm.
oddballs. And yeah, because he used to say, aren't you going to a disco at the weekend or aren't you going somewhere? And I said, oh, no, no, we don't get on with girls or blokes who've got smart trousers or can't dance and all of that. And yeah, he said, you're the lurkers. So I said, oh, well, that's what we got to call ourselves. But Pete Stride, he's this, he's the songwriter in the band. He loved, like say, Mark Bolan, a bit of glam stuff, a bit of Bowie, and all, but like the Faces, and I loved the Velvet Underground and Lou Reed, and we both loved the New York Dolls,
Mm.
and it was the Dolls, I would say, with songs like Frankenstein, Subway Train, which really I thought it was a message. Like these serial killers think they get a message from something. To me, I thought it was a personal message about the inability to join in. It was all about being an outsider. And because I was I had a bit of a funny sort of, I was thrown out of school when I was 14 for hitting a teacher with a lump of wood and smashing his car up. And I didn't really fit in. I didn't really know the rules. Well, I still don't. But I wasn't a nasty bloke. I was just a sort of, fucking
Mm.
lunatic, I suppose. And it followed on into my work thing. I was always getting a sack and didn't fit in. I used to get involved in quite a few fights and stuff in pubs because I didn't like injustice or bullying, but I wasn't a part of a gang or a hard nut. I was just, what I was.
Mm.
But Pete, so I met Pete and this guy Tony and Howard, who was a friend of my brother, and I started drinking with them when I was about 16, 17, and it sort of changed me. It gave me a bit of a direction to sort of talk about music, and I bought a drum kit when I was 16. And I saw music. I mean, a lot of blokes get into music, you get girlfriends, or I know nowadays that's a sort of sexist, misogynist thing to say, but it's true. And but with us, it wasn't that. It was more to do with our feeling of the inability to be normal and join in. And of course, rock music, with its powerful emotions, if you listen to, the Dolls or Iggy Pop or, whatever, and I'll tell you something. About 4 nights ago, I was in a local pub. I live up here in Crook, which is a bit of an old mining village. The people around here are friendly. They talk to you and stuff, but I've got fuck all in common with anyone. But then again, I had fuck all in common with anyone anywhere. And these women were playing darts and they were having a sing song to these things. And the song was out of a thing called The Showman. I don't
Mm.
know. I don't know anything about mainstream stuff. I don't say that with a proud badge. I'm aloof or elitist. I just
Mm.
don't. And they were like singing, and even from the age of 80 to 8, people like know the words to these songs.
Mm.
Fuck me, I feel like I'm from another planet or something.
Mm.
So I put on a couple of Sex Pistols songs,
Mm.
and each one I put on got deleted before it even got into the intro. So I said to the woman behind the bar, "How come my songs don't?" She said, "Well, nobody likes them." And I thought, well, I've had a private meeting while I'm sitting here.
Mm.
You know, I said, well, who doesn't like them? And she said, everyone. I thought, oh, fuck this.
Mm.
You know, and that's not a lot different when I was 17. So, yeah, I don't let it bother me, but it's funny that, isn't it, Sean?
Yeah, yeah,
And obviously we know what it is. I mean, they're listening to mainstream pap for the peasants,
yeah.
and it's just bollocks,
Mm.
same thing. We'll say like the Sex Pistols got an edge, it's different, it's from an arty kind of surreal, whatever view of life. And that doesn't connect with a lot of people, you see.
Yeah.
They don't like it, it makes them feel uncomfortable, and unless it's someone who's dressed as a punk on X Factor and they know what they're getting and they can clap their hands to it. Bit like Oasis, that sort of music, anything you can clap your hands to in the day centre. That's what I see anyway. I become a bitter old bastard.
So when did you decide to become a band then together?
But a what, sorry?
when did you decide to become a band together, all of you?
Well, I mean, it was in 1975,
Yeah.
and we couldn't play. I could only play one beat, and I couldn't really understand what drumming was. I didn't really know when people counted in 1, 2, 3, 4. It had anything to do with the tempo of the song. And funny enough, right up to after we did our first album, I didn't know that. And Pete, the guitarist, he still doesn't know. And yeah, we just did it our way. I think it'd be difficult for any of us to play in another group. I
Hmm.
have played with a couple of people, but only on the I'll just play with you for a bit, or
Hmm.
tonight or something. Um, the politics of a group and people in groups doesn't, well, it's just like having a job or so. I don't really get on in that environment either.
Yeah.
And nor does like Nigel and Pete in the group. I mean, it's not Howard. I never see the singer become a chronic alcoholic. I don't even know if he's alive. Um, yeah, we weren't great at social sort of ingratiating ourselves, but we were honest in our quest for the outsider.
Hmm.
And years later, I mean, that's what carried me on into my writing, which I find is more me. I mean, it is just me, and I've been lucky enough to have a few books published. I'm finding it very difficult at the moment. With my characters, by no surprise to my psyche, are about outsiders and how the big picture impacts upon the small person in the margins. And so rather than talking about politics, like, it's very obvious to talk about politics in the punk world. You had these Stiff Little Fingers or the Clash, or, they're talking about politics. Well, that is complete bollocks. It's very, very disingenuous. And it's too easy, for people to march behind a flag.
Hmm.
We weren't revolutionary. We just wrote pop songs. But if you look at it, there was more conflict in the songs because they were about people who couldn't socialize or form relationships.
Hmm.
I see that as far more rebellious.
Yeah.
It might be about a fat girl who's got a birthday cake and she drops it on the way home, but that doesn't matter. It's about people's inability to be part of what's going on. I mean, being some trendy cunt with a stupid Che Guevara shirt on and a fucking hat more stupid than the one I'm wearing now, dressed identically the same with a other bunch of art students in a club. I mean, it's hardly revolutionary, is it, or rebellious? Do you understand what
Hmm.
I'm saying? You must understand what I'm
Yeah, yeah, of course, yes.
saying. And so I didn't really feel part of that. But I'll start doing my writing. I can just do what I do, and I do, and I get on with that. I'm writing some children's stuff at the moment. It's it's good for someone like me with not many friends, just two glove puppets for companions. And I run it by them. Sometimes they agree, sometimes they don't. But I'm lucky to be here. I've had two heart attacks, hip operations, this, that, falling about. Um, there's a lot of people aren't, who've reached that
Yeah.
age. And, I mean, I don't mean to slag off anyone else. I said the stiff little fingers of the coach. I mean, good luck to them. They were very good at what they did. But I was just trying to explain
Yeah.
that we didn't feel part of that. And we weren't part of that. I mean, I didn't even know what Rock Against Racism was when it was on in 1978. People look back at it and say punk rock against racism. I didn't even know it was on. I think I was down the pub or something. Yeah, honestly, didn't know what it was about, and I thought it was something to do in South Africa or something.
Yeah.
But when I found out what it was, I thought, thank fuck, I wasn't part of that crowd.
So was it difficult finding places to practice together when you first started as a band?
Well, I mean, I used to practice in Pete's bedroom, and
Yeah.
then we went to rehearsal rooms, local rehearsal rooms. I mean, we come from out of West London, so there are places around. It wasn't that difficult. Although, I mean, I've said this so many times, but it makes me laugh. We were rehearsing right in the early days. I mean, and the songs must have been painful. Would have really only been interesting to some psychiatrist in Broadmoor, I suppose. We were doing a song and we're doing our thing. And when we came out the rehearsal room to the sort of little corridor, there was these blokes who were dressed in the outfits of the day in 75, 76. They had like feathered hair, sort of David Bowie style, and
Mm.
big boots and like bowling jackets. I think they wanted to be the new sort of boy band, like the Boys. And that's what they were before they pretended to be a punk band. And they were trying to write songs for little girls, and all of that. Anyway, these blokes were looking at us, and this guitarist with this very, very what I noticed is very competitive people in pop music.
Mm.
I should have punched him in the mouth, but it doesn't matter. He, um, he said, "What is that noise?" And I just sort of shrugged. And I said something like, "It's better than the shit you're playing, you cunt," And he said, "Well, what is that terrible noise?" And he pulled this face. And Pete, our guitarist, he's very, very sardonic and dry. He looked at him and said, "It's much better than it sounds." And, and that's always stuck with me. And it sort of sums up a lot of our experience with people. I mean, because even at that time, you had like bands who were, had a group, and I don't know if they'd played anywhere, this group, but they had their girlfriends with them and carrying their bag and stuff. It was
Yeah.
ridiculous. All I had was a fucking Tesco bag or something, some cans of beer, and before we went down the pub. And these people they'd got the image, they'd got what they imagined you have to be, and but I never saw it like that. And I'm sure the others in the group, well, I know they didn't, because there were more women in a Taliban meeting than they were in a Lurkers dressing room. You know, it's just, it was, not what I'm anti women or we were anti women, but it wasn't just a thing for women. I suppose it didn't have that pose. A lot of girls liked Howard because he was like tall and good looking and slim. Cunt.
So, wasn't one of your early gigs playing not with but on the same night as Streaming Lord Such?
What, what was my what about that? Sorry.
One of your first gigs, didn't you play on the same night as Streaming
Yeah, I
Lord
mean,
Such?
that was in early '76. We played supporting Screaming Lord Sutch at a local college.
Yeah.
We really didn't know what we were doing, and our set was about 9, 10 minutes long, 10 minutes, and I was so tired afterwards because I had all of this anxiety and nerves, and I just exploded into this 10 minutes of fucking. It was like venting some kind of therapy rather than playing the drums. I mean, it was. And when we come off, he come up to me and he said, "You all right, lads?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Is that it?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm knackered." He said, "No, no, no, no. You've got to go on again. 10 minutes is not a set." I said, "Well, I'm tired." He said, "No, no, you've got to go on again, mate." I mean, so we went on. I think we did it in 9 minutes, and he gave up. But I tell you what a nice guy. And he lent us the gear, the backs, because we didn't have stuff, and Pete didn't have any strings, and I didn't have something for my drums, and I just
Mm,
thought everyone would be friendly, but they're not. They're highly competitive people,
mm,
and in groups. But we were lucky we played with him, and he had a word with me and a couple of boys and the people, whoever it was. He said, "Listen, boys, you have to sort of get your act together a bit more." And he said, "I don't mind. We'll lend you some, the speakers and this and that, and that's fine. Because you've got to do more than 10 minutes and you've got to bring your own gear. Otherwise, you're going to find this very difficult."
mm.
And I said, "Right, and I didn't realise what a pleasant bloke he was. Um, because we didn't know what we were doing. I mean, it was bloody mad. I mean, looking back, it was like we were mucking about.
Mm.
Pete didn't have any strings or anything. And I remember we used to play with the Jam down the Red Cow right in the early days. And they were very professional with the Jam. I mean, they'd been around for like 4 years. They used to wear big flared trousers and play Tamla Motown around working men's clubs in Surrey.
Mm.
So they were like a group, and Paul's dad was the guy sort of taking them round. And, they saw punk as an opportunity for Paul to write his songs, and
Mm.
very good they were as well. And they're a great group, weren't they? And but I remember Paul's dad said to me, "Do you boys sort of think about bringing anything with you?" And I said, "Well, what like?" I thought he meant beer. And he says, well, stuff. I said, no, I don't like canned beer. I only buy draft beer. He said, no, I'm talking about drum stuff, strings for your guitars. I said, well, not really. And I remember he gave us a look. And I think they were good to us and lent us strings and things, and we gradually got it together. But it's I remember we supported the Stranglers. There was another one, and I was speaking to that Hugh Cornwall, and he made me think like I was talking to a school teacher. I was about 9,
Hmm.
and I was looking at him, and I know he thought he looked like punk with his silly sort of shirt on and a silly thing around his neck, which I thought was odd for a big posh bloke to wear.
Hmm.
And I said to him, you're a nice bloke, mate, but you remind me of like being a school teacher or something. He said, well, that's what I was. And I
Yeah.
said, yeah, well, that's what you sound like. And and they went on stage, and they're meant to be this and that. But again, they were very, very, professional.
Yeah.
They would do what they were doing. I'd say the Lurkers were the most unprofessional group, definitely, who didn't know what was going on. So it's an absolute miracle that we ended up doing recordings and playing. And looking back at it, we were good at what we did. We whacked it out 100%, and people loved our gigs, because it was a good laugh and
Hmm.
a bit chaotic, well, very chaotic, and yeah, I mean, but we didn't stand for anything. So when I look back, it's with fond memories, but a lot of loneliness and hanging about.
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of when we used to play somewhere, I just sort of go out for a beer or a bag of chips and talk to local people,
Yeah.
and they'd say, "Oh, we got some shit punk band on tonight from London." I say, "Yeah, I know, I'm the drummer." And I said, "You're not, are you?" So yeah, yeah, the local blokes in those days would have, you know, big wide shirts open and a medallion. You know,
Hmm.
and and up north, a lot of people just goes, "Is that fucking spunk rock? If that's fucking spunk rock, you can fuck off, you cunt." I think, fuck you, 200 miles up the motorway to get spoken to like that.
So how did the deal with Beggars Banquet come about? Because you were the first band signed to that label, weren't you?
Biggest banquet.
Hmm.
Well, there's a guy called Mike Stone. They had 3 record shops, Beggars Banquet, and they had a place to rehearse in the one in Fulham where we used to rehearse. And a guy called Mike Stone was the manager of the shop, and he knew this new thing was happening in London. It hadn't actually erupted, but it was underground. It was a
Hmm.
scene going on with these art school people, like with the Sex Pistols, because we wouldn't have been in with that scene. I mean, Susie and they were very connected to the arts and all of that shit.
Yeah.
And yeah, we were more connected to having a game of darts in the pub. And anyway, he had an old Bedford van he got together. He used to drive us around, and he pleaded with his bosses to sign us and to send us in the studio and see. And they said, "Well, we're not a record company." And he said, "Yeah, but start your record company." So it was actually all down to Mike Stone, who they never rewarded,
Hmm.
treated quite poorly, and so he left eventually, and he went to Stoke, and he started Clay Records, and which he was very successful with, and he had the two probably the best British sort of speed punk bands, GBH and Discharge,
Hmm.
and good luck to him, and because they were good and they were like real those groups, whether you like the music or not, they were like proper doing what they were doing, and so I'm pleased that Mike, got recognition for his hard work with that. Um, yeah, but yeah, I mean, Beggars Banquet didn't really know how to manage us. It was a lot of crap, really. You know,
Hmm.
uh, what saved them was Gary Newman. I
Hmm.
mean, yeah, because we didn't. We wasted a lot of money and everything, and they didn't promote us properly. They were sending us to the most stupid places. Punk was breaking in London, so where did we go? Oh, you go to New York, go to Paris. No, go to the Isle of Arran off the Scottish coast at fucking Glasgow week or something. And it was just ridiculous. These jocks, these Glaswegians with fucking long hair, pissed out of their head and flared trousers. Hey, you fucking Nazi Cockney bastards and all of that kind of thing. But there you go, it was most of it was getting away without being physically hurt in the early days.
Mm.
It isn't really about music. It was about, whether you were okay, you had a drink and you weren't hurt. That was our priority, actually.
Whereabouts do you
It's not
think
what people
the
think. It's not what people think.
Yeah, so I mean, it was quite a violent scene back then, wasn't it?
Yeah,
So
very, very. And, I got knocked out a few times because I couldn't stand by and see these horrible bastards picking on people and kicking them on the floor. And I was the only one in the group which could sort of have a go. I mean, I'm not much of a fighter, but I used to jump in and these skinheads used to beat me up. I got knocked out a few times, but I used to hit people with a cymbal stand, and
yeah.
oh no, it was very violent, a lot of blood, and I had a broken nose and sort of fractured cheekbone one night, kicked unconscious a couple of times.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, and why these arseholes would come to our gigs, because a lot of them used to go see Kyling and all of this, and
Mhm.
to what? I mean, what were we? We were like doing pop songs about blokes who can't get girlfriends. So why would they come to our gigs? We weren't like some sort of political group.
Yeah,
I mean, they were just pricks. They're still pricks now, aren't they?
yeah. So
You got those kind of people about.
you were
Yeah,
on the same bill as Gary Newman, weren't you? A few times. What was he like?
very nice guy. He used to support us.
Mm.
Funny and he had a group called Tube by Army, and Beggars signed him, and he used to support us before he did his electric stuff. And of course, I famously said to him one night, I remember we were playing a shithole in Doncaster, and he said to me, because when we all finished, they started playing David Bowie and Brian Ferry. He said, the public still want Bowie, and I said, oh no, Gary, it's all
Mm.
fucking all that stuff. He said, no, 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 Pete. He goes, I've got ideas for mixing something different, but carrying on with a Bowie theme, but
Yeah.
in a new age kind of thing. He was like, I said, Gary, you are wasting your fucking time. Me and my big mouth and empty head. About a year and a half later, he sold about 10 million copies of Cars and Our Friends Electric. And good luck to him. He was very good at what he did.
Mm.
He was a bright bloke, very straight guy, very down to earth, and that's my memories of him. Really,
Mm.
I liked him. I thought he was a nice guy. I think he thought he was a bit mad, fucking playing with us. Seriously. He was a non-drinker, sort of non-smoker, and he had his eye on fashion and what's suitable and what's functional and what isn't, and he was fucking playing with us,
Mm.
which was like bit of chaos, really. Though we didn't want to be chaos, it sort of just was kind of chaotic. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And we were disliked by so many people, by all the art crowd, and
Yeah.
sneered at. And that's why our second album was called God's Lonely Men.
Mm.
Where are your friends? Is the line in the song.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we didn't actually get invited anywhere. I remember I met the blokes at the Dam, there were a couple of them, and I thought, fucking hell, they're arseholes, you know what I mean?
Mm.
They knew what they were doing, and they were very trendy in their way. I thought, oh, sod this. I think a lot of it is because the guys in the groups then, in say from the mid 70s onwards in the punk bands, had been a bit hippified.
Yeah.
They used to sort of sit cross-legged, listening to Hendrix and smoking dope with their girlfriends and boyfriends or whatever. And they had a change of hairstyle and trousers, but they were still really that type of person
Mm.
playing sort of stripped down music. Well, we weren't. We weren't like that. And from when we were very young, we liked things like the Kinks, the Carpenters, the Move,
Hmm.
the Idle Race, and of course the American influence was huge. With say Iggy and Velvet Underground, and for me it was Alice Cooper and
Hmm.
the New York Dolls. So it was more tongue in cheek, kind of trash rock and roll, screaming about more personality things rather than structural politics.
Yeah.
I didn't know what people were talking about when they were talking about, you've got to break down the, establishment. I don't have a clue what they were talking about.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that's what you get for not having an education and drinking heavy at an early age.
Well, there's a period in the band where Nigel Moore left for a while and Kim Bradshaw joined. What do you remember about that part? Because he didn't really fit in, did he, Kim?
No, no. Well, Art joined us, Arturo.
Hmm.
But he played on the first two singles, and then he didn't want to do it. He went and played with his group Pinpoint, and still an OP, and then Kim joined when we started doing our first album. But Kim was a pleasant bloke, but it wasn't for him. He didn't drink for God's sake, and he was always ill, taking bloody Beecham powders. He didn't understand why we drunk so much. And you guys, because he was Australian, we thought we were going to get a right old drinker in.
Hmm.
And what's wrong with you guys? You drink too much, and that's all you care about is beer. And that was it, really. It wasn't an answer to that. And so he left, and then Nigel come back, and so it was all back to as it started right at the beginning with Nige back. It made sense because we were all sort of mummies boys, well, except for Howard. Fucking retards from suburbia, really, at the end of the line. So it suited us. But we
Hmm.
were a powerful group. And, you know, our gigs were very well liked and what I've heard, because
Hmm.
there was an album came out that was recorded on a handheld recorder in Margate in '77, and I was just surprised that we could play well. I never thought we could play, and no, and it's better than most other stuff around that time, which was meant to be punk, and that's why we sold a lot of records and people liked us.
Hmm.
You didn't have to have all the image and all of that. You had to have it if you wanted to move somewhere else,
Yeah.
which we didn't, and that's why it ended. But it is very difficult to move from that. But there are people that came out of that scene and moved somewhere else. For instance, someone like Billy Idol.
Hmm.
Well, I should imagine by the age of 4, he was wanking at himself in front of the mirror. Do you know what I mean? So so yeah, punk was a thing that he got into. But if it wasn't punk, it would have been something else. He would have been a model or something. I met
Yeah.
him a few times. We played with him
Hmm.
a few times, and we used to rehearse in the same place. I always remember asking him one day. He said to me, "Where are you going later, Pete?" I said, "Well, we're going in the pub and to have a game of darts and a few beers." I said, "Come on in with us." And I think you came in once and just sort of sipped a sort of Coca-Cola looking at us. And oh, Howard, the singer, said to me, "He's uncomfortable, Pete. Leave him alone." Because I
Hmm.
kept putting my arm round and go, "You all right, mate? Do you want a drink?" And he's going, "No, I'm okay, thank you." And yeah, but he was a nice bloke,
Hmm.
and they're a great group. I mean, Generation X were, I mean, those few first singles they did were fantastic. Brilliant drummer, and yeah, yeah. I mean, I like Generation X, and they did whack it out, but we couldn't compare ourselves to someone like Billy Idol. I mean, he wanted to be a star, and he had all the things, and I think he knew a lot of arty people, and he did this and that.
Hmm.
So it's a different thing. We were coming from a different ballpark altogether, really. But the only thing we did have is that Peter's a good songwriter, and we did give it 100%.
Yeah.
And we would play anywhere, and so I think we got respect for that, and quite right as well. We did have 100% commitment to this thing we did, as long as it came after having a drink. But
Well, you
anyway,
had
it's a long
lots.
time ago. It was a long time ago, and we've been playing
Hmm.
the last few years with Damaged Records, Damaged Goods, Damaged, and Ian that runs that's been very kind and taken us on. And we did this album, Sex Crazy, that came out about 3 years ago. It did well. And, I really like it. I think that's the best album we've ever done. There's
Hmm.
just the three of us, Nige, Pete, and me. And I'll be going down to London in a couple of months and be doing some more drumming with them. Pete and Nige have been working on stuff. So we're still sort of close. It's like strange, really, when you've known people for 50 years
Yeah.
and I never really liked them. No, 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 no. It's yeah, it's like an odd little family, really, and yeah, it's great. So I'm pleased to sort of still be part of that and do a bit of drumming.
Yeah.
Uh, my main thing is my writing, but I'm finding it very hard to get a publisher now. But no, it's um, it's been a long while. It's beginning to feel that it's been a long time as well, Sean. The over the years,
Hmm.
because those stories I'm telling you about the Stranglers and all that, I mean, that is knocking on half a century ago, mate.
Oh, I know. I know. It makes you feel old, doesn't
Well, I am fucking old. I've only got to look in the mirror.
it?
And, I mean, I tell you what, I moved up here about 3 years ago, whatever, and I went out for a beer because I don't really do anything different here than I did or I lived, near Uxbridge in West London. And I don't really know anyone, I know people to have a chat to, and all the nutters at the end of the night, and all the transvestites, weirdos, and criminals. I'm part of that gang, really. And but it was very busy in this pub. I hadn't been here long, and the youngsters around here are very friendly. They're all right. And this young bloke said to me, "You all right there, mate?" In his Geordie accent. And I said, "Yeah, right." He made some room at the bar because it was quite crowded. I said, "Oh, thanks, mate." He said, "It's good you're still getting out then." What? And I've had that sort of thing said to me a couple of times. So, yeah, so I'm an old bugger, aren't I? But at least I'm here.
Yeah. What made you write the book about the Lurkers and your story with the Lurkers? Because that was your first novel, wasn't it?
Yeah, God's Lonely Men, named after our second album.
Hmm.
If I'd have written it now, I would have been a little bit more objective. I think I was too sort of honest and very naive in my feelings, my emotions. Um, but it was just an outsider that got part of what was ostensibly or supposedly an outsider movement.
Hmm.
And the experience of that person, i.e., me in a group, the Lurkers, and I'm looking at the association of what we did in outsiderism with people and music and how it mixed.
Hmm.
So it's a different view of music, and a lot of people have told me they really enjoyed it because they tell me it isn't your normal music book because there's no real name dropping and there's no sex and no drugs. So it is just a view. Someone told me years ago that because he comes from quite near, well, he's from Sheffield area, but he at the time he was in Bradford area when the Yorkshire Ripper was around.
Hmm.
And he said there's a very poignant part in your book, Pete, where you spoke very sensibly but very insightfully about Bradford, the working class community, and what it felt like for men at that time, and people like barmaids, girls, women who have do work in the evening, which means they have to wait for buses.
Hmm.
And when this fucking lunatic was around, because at the time the Ripper was big news when we played there, and he was around. And we played this pub in Bradford, and the guy's name, I remember him because I've got a good memory for maniacs. His name was Malcolm Fairplay, and he was a funny guy, and he took me around parts of Bradford looking for wrestlers because I told him I love the wrestling, and he kept gripping my arm and hurting me, It was very odd. And he just calling me a fat bastard all the time. And anyway, when we went in his pub, they got these girls behind the bar, working behind the bar, and he said, "Look at that one there. She was blonde last week. Now they're all brunette. The Ripper got a blonde last time round." God. And I thought, God, he's a bit callous. You know what I mean?
Mm.
But I soon realised that there was a lot of fear in that area. And late in the evening, we went for an Indian because that was new to us boys from out of London, going to an Indian restaurant at 1 in the morning.
Mm.
And we went in this place, and he knew the person in there. He was the big boss. He walked around with these big sort of sort of wrist straps on, like sort of a Victorian strongman. Complete good nutter. I always thought the best nutters in the world come from Bradford. Anyway, we went in this Indian restaurant, and these girls come with us. And one of the girls said to me, "Don't get put off by Malcolm. Love. He looks after us. Not one of us will ever have to walk home or get a bus. He makes sure each one of us gets to the pub and gets home safely."
Mm.
And I could see that he had a great deal of respect from these people.
Mm.
And it made me think, by reading things like The Guardian, who always sort of at the top, well, they smearing and discrediting sort of white working class blokes as being knuckleheads and all this crap. I thought the unsung heroes out there during that period were people like Malcolm Fairplay
Mm.
because it was more meaningful and relevant in people's lives. Not a fucking social worker you got a book to see at 2 o'clock next Thursday.
Yeah.
He was a person who actually did things for people. And I did talk about Bradford, and because it affected me, as
Yeah.
did the podcast. It was it was on the news, but as we know, like what's going on at the moment around the world, it's a news item and it can be eye candy for the weirdos. But the reality is, each person in that news item is a bloody person. And for me, I took it very seriously. Those women there and the haunted looks on blokes, because all the blokes were all being dragged in by the police, and
Mm.
it was an awful time in a place that was going through a terrible economic decline, and it just added to the grimness of it. And when they make stories and films about these things, they keep talking about gender and bollocks like that. I mean, you'll forget this crap and just talk about the person and
Yeah.
what it means to people. And it was just very, very sad and made very sad by the police who didn't give a shit about the women being killed because they thought they were prostitutes.
Yeah.
And said he got a college student, and then the police had to kick themselves into action because you can kill prostitutes all day long because they don't matter. They're not normal. They don't play by the normal rules of the game. So therefore, they're not given the same sympathy or understanding, which of course is terrible. It's the more vulnerable you are, the less support you get in life.
Yeah.
And my last book I've written is about a transvestite guy that goes in revenge for this rogue policeman who's killed his sister, who was mentally ill, but this copper thought she was a prostitute. Now, the story looks at prostitutes. I mean, this is coincidental. This I didn't sort of
Mm-hmm.
plan to talk about this, but I mean, I did a lot of research on this last year. I mean, it's just unbelievable. You got people in the Labour Party, are meant to be really fucking politically right on, you know, calling these girls sex workers.
Mm.
But it's just ridiculous. Of course, they're not sex workers. They're prostituting their bodies.
Mm.
And and what it's done by opening it up and making it a business through the internet and this and that and brothels and what was the sort of pole dance, and they've made sex a sort of a very acceptable thing on the street. Well, that's just opened the door for like fucking people trafficking.
Mm.
And they're
Yeah.
bringing in these girls. The last thing they are sex workers. You know, oh, that makes you assume, oh, you got a choice. Oh, or should I be an accountant or a doctor or should I be a sex worker? And this look, sex workers, you've got like a 500,000 time more rate of dying in poverty through drugs, being murdered, committing suicide than someone who's a teacher or an accountant. That wouldn't be a very good career choice, would it?
No.
And so by calling it a sex worker, it sanitizes it and makes the abuse of vulnerable people more acceptable in society. So I think we've gone backwards with this fake liberal bollocks. I really do.
Mm.
I really do, because there are more young women. And, I'm not a trendy PC person in the slightest, but that's got nothing to do with it. We're all people.
Yeah.
50% of the world are women, for God's sake. So why should they be talked about as if they're different?
Mm.
Because I do know if men were treated the same, and they were, transported in this sort of trade of flesh, it wouldn't be acceptable.
Yeah.
And so why is that?
Mm.
And yeah, and whilst doing that book, I always felt sorry for prostitutes. People say, "Oh, it's their choice and everything." Well, I don't know. I don't know. And anyway, after doing my research in this book and looking and speaking to people, I come out of it with a whole bunch of facts. And yeah, it not only backed up what I thought, but it actually introduced me to how bloody harrowing and hopeless the situation is. Because, I know I'm a man, but Jesus Christ,
Mm.
how is this allowed to happen? I don't eat meat because I think it's terrible how animals are treated, and I think they should shut down all fur farms and bloody death houses, the slaughterhouses, and all of this, because it's not good on us. But it's not far behind. It's pretty similar to the
Mm.
way women are treated throughout the fucking world.
Yeah.
I mean, Christ, I mean, just look at what happens around the world with these people. I mean, they're not a separate entity, a Martian, and that really opened it up to me. And yeah, so I wrote this novel about it, and it had a profound effect on my emotion because I found it to be very upsetting.
Mm.
And I've always been, you know, there for the underdog, whether it was in a pub fight when someone's on the floor getting kicked, or about animals, or about this, or people being bullied. But it's pretty strange. I'm seeing half of the human race as an underdog, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, and so yeah, that book is called Dressing for Gem. I mean, I haven't got a publisher. I'm looking. I've sent it to some people, but these fucking assholes and these publishers, they've all got names like Trisvinder and Shamami and Trust Fund Lovers and stuff. They're not interested, are they?
It's available on Amazon though, isn't it?
Sorry, what do you say?
It's available on Amazon.
No, no, it isn't. No.
Oh, isn't it?
No, no, I haven't self-published. I self-published my last one. I don't like the idea of self-publishing, Sean.
Mm.
I don't like it. Yeah, it's. I'd like to have a company and for it to be presented in front of people, and because if it's down to me to market it, I might as well give it to my cat who lives up in Scotland, because it's not going to happen. I mean, I'm useless at that kind of thing.
Mm.
All right, mate. Listen, I have got to go soon.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks for doing this chat, mate. It's been really interesting.
I hope it was useful to you, Sean.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
And I've tried to behave myself.
No, it's been really interesting, mate, as usual.
Yeah, well, it's very kind of you to ask me, mate, and good luck.
Thanks, mate. Well,
And
thanks again.
also, I didn't know you didn't have any hair either.
Oh, that went about 10 years ago.
I know mine did it. Mine did the Italian backstep in about when I was about 24, 25.
Uh,
Yeah, and that was it. Not that it affected me not getting any of the girls, because I was useless at that anyway. All right, mate.
All right, mate. You take care. Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for asking me, Sean. You take care now.
You too,